To call the meeting at 6:30 of the License Committee. And basically, we're here for one major reason, to learn about the licensing of alcohol establishments, businesses, the stores that sell, not so much the restaurants in this case. And we have Dave Wood with us today, who is the chair of the licensing board. And Dave, would you like to come up to the podium? Even though I just said your name, you can say it again.
My address.
Your name and address.
Thank you, Ty. My name is David Wood. My address is 61 Thayer Farm Road.
Thank you.
As I mentioned, I'm the chair of the licensing board.
Right, and the reason I've gotten the chance to get to know David a little bit lately is because we had a request sent to us regarding the Emery Convenience Store, which is on Emery Street. Mm-hmm. And the gentleman that owns it, you'll have to excuse me. Mobile Makul?
Correct.
And would you like to share with us what his desire was and then what we've learned since then?
Sure. So Nabil had opened the convenience store in the neighborhood that he serves. He's very close to the neighborhood, and that came across when we met with him. But his initial request in reaching out to Allison Wood was to find out about getting a liquor license. So what Allison had walked him through was, here's the process, there's a waiting list, you get on the waiting list, and it'll take some time. Anyone who's looked at the waiting list knows it can go back to 2008. It currently is about 30 establishments waiting for a license. So with that, he is an industrious young man, and we suggested that if he had further questions, he could definitely reach out to his local counselor, which he did. He also came before the board maybe about a month ago, forgive my memory, and we again walked him through the process. And in the past, we had other establishments who had recently gained their liquor license and were looking to locate on South Main. As Ty's maybe looked at some of the minutes in the past. And what I did at the time was take a look, literally just Google Maps, to see where all of our package stores were. And it felt like, from my perspective and the board's perspective, was that would have been a little bit too concentrated, given that there was Ciaba right there and another package store right around the corner. This was the Dodgeville store, who had gained a second license, so very fortunate on their part. So we identified together some other locations and recommended, Route 1, believe it or not, could use another liquor store, and they ended up finding the perfect spot, right in the Shop and Stop Plaza, and they have much more space there than they were. So that had a happy ending, so to speak. When Nabil came before us, it was a bit of a similar circumstance. Obviously, city's right there at Park Street, and then the other package store that just changed hands not long ago is right at the other end of the park there. So my initial thought was, I was a bit reluctant, given the concentration there, but Nabil did a really wonderful job of talking about the neighborhood. Many folks in the neighborhood don't have a car. Not that it's a long distance in either direction, but he just, kind of tugged at my heartstrings a bit, and collectively we felt like, okay, but there's still a process, and there's still quite a line. So I think at that point,
right,
he reached out to Ty, and then Ty and I began our conversations. So that's really where we ended up. And I think during that process, Ty got educated with the length of the list. It's now up to 30, and as I mentioned, it goes back to 2008. There's a couple of folks who at the very beginning of the line, but it's been some time. So that's, in summary, kind of where we are and where we landed. And then I'll feel free to take any questions from the council. If there's
Well, I'll
anything I can
stick
add
with the
color to.
committee, and I will get to you, Councilor Angelo. Councilor DeSimo.
Thank you, Ty. Dave, thanks for coming. So I have a few questions, because this is on my mind for several reasons. Number one, the city has, if I understand correctly, 20 licenses, 10 of all alcohol and 10 of wine and beer?
21, there was a special alcohol license.
Oh, yes, the one, okay. Barring that, though, it's 20 from the state.
10 and 10, you're correct.
Okay, and those are all taken.
Yes.
Now, the 30 people on the list, are those people looking for a license so that they can open a business somewhere? Or are these people with sites who want to serve alcohol on those sites? How many are site-specific and how many are
Right. Most of them are sites.
site-specific?
Yep.
So they have
Right,
sites.
they're all, right.
And so no one before Mr. Nabil has thought about doing the special act petition for a site-specific, which I believe is exactly what it's for, right? They're non-transferable, they're
had.
site-specific.
Correct.
Okay, so, so the conundrum is this, right? The way I see it, at the moment, I don't see any impediment to moving forward with the special act that he's requested. But the issue I think we might have is the other people who have site specifics. How would we say that, he gets it because he thought of it and they don't? And I guess my question is this, Dave. I've seen municipalities that have filed special acts for several site-specific licenses.
Mm-hmm.
How many would that entail? If we were to do that, to be fair, for those people who have sites, the license would be site-specific, stays, it runs with the site.
Right.
What are we looking at?
Look, can I
Yeah.
answer your question in a different way? Because I think it might help the floor as well.
Okay.
So, what Boston did with their site-specific, zone-specific licenses, those were really targeted to restaurants and the hotels. They weren't targeted to package stores, wine and malt stores, convenience stores. So that is the nuance. There was more in the seaport area as they developed that. They were looking to add more capacity. So it's really more for a full service. So that's the term, that you're full service. You're serving alcohol,
Yeah.
controlled substance. Versus these are either markets, convenience stores and whatnot that are looking to add this ability,
Yeah.
the license to serve and sell alcohol, not serve, but sell alcohol. So that's the nuance. And then none of them are site-specific in the sense that they're randomly throughout Attleboro. So if your question is, can we do that? I think we would have a whole can of worms, if
Yeah.
you will, with that. So the genesis of that is what Boston did, and that was more aligned with
Yeah.
serving alcohol for restaurants, the hotels and whatnot.
If I may just,
That-
yeah.
Did I answer your question? I wanna
Kind
make
of.
sure. Okay.
My concern is this, right? So we have this request before us. I don't see an impediment to the request. It seems appropriate. It seems legally, provided. But then we have people on the list, so in my head I'm thinking, well, how do we do it for one and then provide due process and fairness to the other people on the list? I guess that's my concern.
That would be my concern. I would share that concern.
Yeah.
That the other 29 would be giving you a phone call.
Yeah. So we've got ourselves a conundrum, right?
Well, you could look at it that way, or he can wait, like many others have since, like I said, since 2008. Or there's the option of, and discuss this on and off with Allison, is why do we only have 10?
That's,
Attleboro's a growing city. You look at the developments that are underway with more to come. Our population, just me, driving around town in my truck is, doing work and working for customers and renovations and whatnot. younger people are coming into the city. Younger people are coming in from other parts of the state that are used to maybe a different, in terms of the availability of conveniences. So that would be where I would, if I were to make a recommendation, look to see how can we get more. 20 is
Yeah.
what we have. We have 10 wine and malt, 10 full, and then the special, which was, Brick's Corner, many years ago.
Increasing the cap would also be by special act, though, right?
I don't know those details. I think what we'd have to do is work with our local legislator to find out what we could do to do that.
Yeah.
And then that's, in conjunction with the ABCC. So that would be the avenue I would pursue and figure out what we would want. What's the right number?
If I may, one question. Do we know how long it's been since that we've had 20? In other words, when did we last get an extra one?
Yeah, that's a good question, too. I can't answer that off the top of my
Yeah,
head, but
I
I can
didn't
follow up and
expect
find
that.
out. Right.
But I think we have some research to do, and also how to go about getting more, and do we qualify? So I agree with that.
Right.
Councilor
The question on
Angel?
density is kind of really where I've been focused, is what is the right density? It's 41,000, 42,000, since
I
last
believe
census?
it's about 47.5.
Oh, okay.
I could be wrong, I can be
Right,
corrected,
okay.
but. Councilor Dolan?
Thank you. Thank you for coming, David. I'm just wondering, so I know that the licenses are based on population, so I wonder what the formula is. So if you said that there's people on the waiting list since 2008, I know that some people sell licenses like, Scorpios and Banditos and that, whole block there. But I mean, I wonder, like Arugas, where did they get their license? They're not that old. I wonder how they got their license.
Arugas is a restaurant. These are package stores. So full service is different. So to be served is different than a package store that sells.
So then you
Two
have
different types, yes.
10 wine and malt,
Yes,
and then 10 liquor.
All
And these-
alcohol.
And these are all just
those
stores.
are package stores.
Package stores.
Off premises.
And what were you said, can you clarify what you said about Dodgeville having 2 licenses? Are you talking about Dodgeville Country Store?
Right.
What do you mean?
They had been on the list, so they had, that was my example of, they had an existing store, they had been on the list. When a new license became available, they were next up on the list. They'd been waiting that long.
So how
So
did
now they have 2, but that's because they went through the process. They've been in place that long. And they do get sold, to your question. I want to say Castro Brothers might have been the last one that was sold and transferred, but don't quote me on that.
So I wonder, I don't know. I don't know how I feel about this one way or the other, honestly. I really, and I don't know what you consider dense as far as other stores. So you have the package store right near the barber shop, and I can't think of the name.
City Spirits, right?
City Spirits 1, right?
Right,
And then you have the one at the end of Park.
where Naps was, right?
Yeah.
Called Naps, but yeah,
And then what else is up there?
that's it.
Is that it?
And Nabil would have been in the, kind of in the middle.
Right, he's right there on Emery Street.
Right.
I don't know. So, I mean, my only concern is, like Councilor DeSimone said, was, like we just said, precedence, So, we do for one, and then we have everybody else lining up,
Right,
Yep.
right. Well,
And
that's
then
where
we
I
have to
think-
make, I'm sorry, I
No, you
didn't
go
mean to
ahead.
interrupt you.
No.
And so then we have to make a determination, so if others on the list decide to do this, they're watching right now and they're like, a light bulb goes off, I'm gonna do it as well. So they come before us, and then we have to determine where they are and the density there. So, if there's 3 stores near this person, oh, that's too much. Like we have to figure out where to draw the line, and I'm not sure where that is.
Right, and my reference to density was more about whatever the formula is for the population. So
Right,
say
I
we're
thought you
at-
meant
say we're
like
at
in the
50,000.
area.
That was relative to one package store, but in terms of the formula to generate perhaps more licenses.
Right.
What is that density numbers really?
Because
That
our
was my-
population has obviously grown.
Right.
So, I mean, I think that's a question clearly not for myself. I think that's all the questions I have. Thank you.
Before you ask again, that you
Okay.
will. Councilor Angelo, you had a question.
I did, but I appreciate it. Did you want to let
No,
your
go ahead.
committee speak?
No, go
first?
ahead, go ahead.
All right, thank you. A couple of my questions were already answered, Dave. Thank you very much. The last remaining question I have, and I apologize if I missed this when I was getting some water, but have the other people on the waiting list, have they appealed to the state? They have not?
No.
No,
Okay.
they have not.
Okay. Councilor DeSimone?
So Dave mentioned Boston, who just recently petitioned for many more licenses, right?
It's a few years ago, and they may have
There was
more
another-
recently, but.
Just did another one, yeah.
Yeah, we just met with the ABCC a couple of weeks ago, and they'd mentioned
Yep.
that background.
So I mean, I'm not an expert, but I think to get more, even generically, even those that aren't site-specific, is through special act. And if we do that, it would fall under your jurisdiction, so we wouldn't have to sit here, like, let's say we got 10 additional licenses by special act, not site-specific, right? They just said Attleboro can have 10 more. That would be under your jurisdiction, right? When applicants come forward, the board would decide, or?
We would just continue to follow with the list.
Right.
So if 10 more became available, it would be
Right.
really the next 10.
Because I personally, I have concerns, as Council Dolan does, about how to evaluate. I don't want to be in that business of determining who gets one, who doesn't get one. I have personal and philosophical issues with the fact that we still do this, to throw back to the Prohibition era, but that's a separate matter. But if we were to get more, it would be your jurisdiction and the board's jurisdiction to award them.
Correct.
Okay.
That's the process. That's in essence what we manage.
And have we reached out to the solicitor with this question about?
Not yet. I wanted to have a discussion before we decided on the next move.
Well, if I may, just.
You may.
My concern is, I applaud this man's ingenuity in realizing that this was an avenue. And I don't see a reason not to grant it. It seems like a fair and appropriate request, but at the same time, I acknowledge that there's 30 people on the list who are gonna be like, ah! So, I think Dave's suggestion about maybe the first step is seeing if we can just get more. And then do that, and then let the board do its thing and award them as it sees fit.
I'm in agreement with that. We need to find out if we qualify for more and how we go about finding that out. And if you would like, I can approach Representative Hawkins, and he can steer me where I need to go, and we'll start from there. And I'll do the same with our state senator. And I don't want to bypass, I mean, we have a licensing board for a very good reason.
Agreed.
So,
Agreed, I'm more than happy to, yeah, more than happy to let them decide.
Mr. Chair,
please, I'm sorry. Councilor Connie.
I think Ms. Bennett had her hand up first.
Oh,
Thank you. I just
Councilor
have a,
Bennett.
I have a question, just to clarify. So, for this granting of the one additional wine and malt package store license, this would be a petition to the state, it sounds like, for the one additional. And just to make sure that I understand, we could ask for more than that, but in the event that the state did grant more, and we had 10 more, that would not necessarily help this applicant then. So if we went right in order of fairness, it would be the first 10 on the list that have been waiting. Would we still consider granting one ahead of the line because he petitioned it? Or is that part of this conversation? Or is this get in line and then we'll see where things kind of fall over time? Because it sounds like what we're angling for is to ask for more. But
No, and this
we'd have to
person,
put them, I would think
this
we would
person
have to
pays
put
the
them in
price
line.
for having the idea, right? So,
Yeah.
I mean,
guess that's
the
my
way I
question.
understand it, Dave, right, is that some are site-specific and they travel only with the land, with the location. But if we increase the cap generally, those can go,
We have none of those, so maybe I wasn't clear. None of these are site-specific within the city. What Boston did was set up zones, again, for restaurants.
Yep.
And those are specific
Okay.
to those zones.
okay.
So
President Delicio, you have a question.
Thank you. So, Council Waterman, thank you for asking the question about how long we've been at the 20. Yeah, I think we've got to look at this one carefully, and I think we have to trust in our partners on the licensing board to do their job, because it's not our determination, right? We have to work in conjunction with, really vet this, because my biggest concern is, I don't know how you do it for one and not the others. I don't know how you sit there and you say to the people who've been waiting on the list since 2008, you said,
There's a couple,
potentially,
right.
that because this guy wrote a really nice letter and he seems to have a good business plan, maybe I would have gotten the license before, but, that's just me. We have 47,035 residents in the city. If Castro's was the last to be sold, that was probably a year and a half, 2 years ago, I'm thinking.
2 years ago, I think, yeah, that's right.
So it's not that common that they're sold or transferred.
And it's very expensive.
Very expensive. And then, is there a limit to how many licenses one company can have? So you talked about Dodgeville, they have 2.
Right. I don't know that off the top of my head.
Okay.
I don't believe there is, but I don't know that for a fact.
And do you know, and if you don't know these answers, that's 100%, I know where to find you. But, do you have an idea of how many businesses have multiple? Is it just Dodgeville? I'm sure
I think they're
City
the
Square-
only one. Yeah, yes, yeah,
Okay.
positive.
Because I'm wondering if there could be a little bit of, peer-to-peer business conversations as well. I just think it would be setting a dangerous precedent if we said, hey, because you found this loophole, we're gonna support you and not everyone else who's been waiting for, as many years as they've been waiting, so. Thank you, Council Waterman.
You're welcome. Councilor Conti.
Thank you, Counselor. I apologize for arriving late, David. I knew your predecessor very well and knew his opinions very well, and he was very clear on what his opinion was about being the chair of the ABCC in Attleboro. My question to you is, and I apologize for being late, maybe you've already answered this question. What is your opinion about the fact that licenses which a applicant can get from you for the registration fee, which is minimal, can turn around and sell it for 6 figures, beginning? Does that seem fair to you?
Councilor Conti, I believe there's a minimum time period that they need to use it. I don't remember what that is off the top of my head, but I think that's in place for that very reason.
So getting a liquor license in Attleboro is like winning the lottery. It has tremendous value, even though it doesn't cost a lot of money to get. Am I correct?
Through this process, correct.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Councilor Dolan.
Thank you. I feel like when I spoke to Allison about this type of license, the special legislation license, goes away. Like, I don't think this gentleman, and I could be wrong, I don't think he can just obtain it and then sell it. From my understanding, the special legislation license goes away if this gentleman went away. If he closed down, I don't think he has the option to sell it, and now I wish I would have looked that up. And I gotta say, it bothers me that Dodgeville has 2. Like, why do we allow that? That just seems odd and hoarding and seems wrong to me when it's a little store and one does exactly what they could have 17.
Well,
Like, they only need one, right?
well, they're opening a new establishment, so they
Oh,
don't. They
in
aren't-
Attleboro.
They are correct. So they don't have 2 licenses for the one Dodgeville store. That was just an example in that they had been a long time holder, had been on the list a long time, and to use Councilor Conti's analogy of winning the lottery, their number finally came up after all of those years, and so they're opening up a second package store.
I'm sorry, I apologize,
That's okay.
I must have missed
No,
that.
I just want to make sure it's.
No, I appreciate you clarifying that because I completely missed that, so that makes me feel better. But I wish I would have looked that up because I feel like this gentleman at Emery Street can't just jump the line and then sell it for $300,000 or something to that effect. I feel like that you can't do that, but I don't know that for sure. Thank you.
Okay. We have, oh, Counselor, yes, please.
Thanks, Council Waterman.
Please, yeah.
Dave, with the number of 47,035 residents, what do you think, in, you know, if you're comfortable answering, but in your opinion, what do you think the right number of licenses would be?
Couldn't guess.
Okay,
But
That's fair.
that's where we talked about what's the right density.
yep,
And if you were to ask me a different question, is 20 enough? I might have an opinion.
sure. Is 20 enough?
I don't think so. I don't think so. But that's really where getting into the background, working with our rep, our senator, to understand, and our colleagues up at the ABCC, what is the ratio?
Yep,
And then how do we may want to modify that? Is it, 5 for every 1,000, whatever that is? And then I think then collectively we can make an informed decision and a decision based on the numbers, analytics.
if I could just,
Counselor Copus was next.
couldn't
And
follow.
Counselor Run.
I couldn't, follow.
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought you were done.
No, thanks.
Please go ahead.
So I guess, and the reason I ask that is because I think Council Bennett brings up a really good point. We want to be careful because let's say the number ends up being 10, we add 10, you still have 20 that are still out of luck. Then, I think that what we do is look at these as two separate issues. One is what do we do about Mr. McCool, and then what do we do about the licenses? So I think it's an interesting discussion to be having. So thank you.
You're welcome. I mean, he in talking with Nabil, and you can refer to the minutes because I think we may have covered that, his intent was to have a convenience store. He serves great coffee, he loves his neighbors, and it's made a difference in that community. I don't know if he had intended, and I can't recall from our conversation, if he intended when he started the business, I'd also like to have a package store. I just don't recall that. But he's got a successful business now, and obviously he'd like to see it grow. And adding a liquor license certainly would do that. But there'd be some marginal shouldering in terms of takeaway from the other
Right.
package stores in the area. So if he were to somehow jump the queue and take business away from his other fellow license holders in the area, then you have a whole other kind of can of worms we've opened.
Very
up. So,
delicate.
Counselor Copus.
Sure, and I just looked up a couple things for background for everyone. According to Mass General Law, Chapter 138, Section 17, one license under the provisions of Section 15, which apply to liquor store licenses, for each population unit of 5,000 or additional fraction thereof, but may, regardless of population, grant at least 2 licenses under said Section 15. So 45,000 and change equates to 10 licenses under this Section 15, which is my understanding where we got to the 10 licenses. And then a minimum of 2. And my understanding is that only goes up, and it doesn't go down. It's based on the census, and the last census was in 2020. So it'll be another 10 years before that gets looked at again, according to Mass General Law. So I don't know if there's the ability for us to change that for Attleboro, or how to go about that, but,
Special act.
okay.
Yeah, that's the only way to do it
Right.
now.
Are there other communities that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. If you go to the, forgive me, Ty, if you go to the state
Right.
website.
Counselor Reynolds will be
Oh,
next.
my apologies, Sarah.
Go ahead.
I came across, in researching this issue, I came across several municipalities who have filed the special acts and increased their license limits. Some for beer and wine, some for some for all alcohol, some on premises, some off premises. So it's done. And I think it's the way to go because frankly, if we do it the way Dave is proposing, just increasing the limit, not related to specific premises, it's his jurisdiction and their board's jurisdiction, and we don't have to be in the business because I think it is going to be difficult. Because I have to say, I mean, this gentleman came up with, his ingenuity. He came up with a way that, again, is appropriate and legal. But at the time, it's a problem. It's a problem, but then you've got 30 people waiting. So I'd rather not. I'd rather let Dave and the board handle it. So I think we need to send the solicitor a very well-crafted, descriptive issue of the problem and get her advice as to how to proceed. you know?
Yeah, with the solicitor?
I would, I would definitely go to
Yeah.
the solicitor about how it's done and her advice, because I'm pretty sure she has seen this in other municipalities, because it's been done, so.
But I am in agreement with you on that. I am. 1 second, Councilor Reynolds, because I think that President Delicio, can you jump in?
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure at this point I'm comfortable sending it to the solicitor. Not
Okay.
until we do some other work. I mean, you know, I think there's research we can do on our own before we send it to the solicitor. We want to be cognizant of the cost that goes
Yeah.
along with that. So I'd be very hesitant at this point to okay it going to the solicitor. So
All right.
I think there's research that can be done before we get to that point, and then we can reconvene and dust off this conversation. But at this point, I don't think it makes sense.
Councilor Reynolds?
So I just would suggest that, you know, there's a reason for one every 5,000, and that's so that the people that actually open one or have their license actually can make some money. You know, you start adding, doubling them up or whatever, someone's going to lose out financially, and it's worked. This process has worked a really, really long time, and to me has kept everything reasonable. I don't see how we can let somebody, even though he's very innovative, jump to the next level and leave 10 or 20 people behind that have been waiting in line, just like the store did down there. Good for them that they hung in there and waited till their number came up again. I mean, they've waited. But I think 10 is enough, quite frankly, for this city. One for every 5,000 to me sounds more than reasonable. It's not like, I mean, we got people complaining about NIPS now. If they think there was a lot with 10 stores, what are they going to be saying about 20? So I'm just saying, I'm in agreement here that it doesn't go to the solicitor yet. I think there's a lot of questions before I'd even think about moving upwards, even close.
Okay. Do we have any other questions? Because I think we have explored this subject quite a bit this evening. I would like to get back with you. I'll give you a call. Is there a good time for you? Evenings, perhaps? Or?
Sure.
Evenings are probably better for you.
Yeah, during the day I'll be on a job site. and
That's fine.
If the saw's running, I'm not going to hear my phone.
All right. So we needed to explore this with you.
Will I help?
Yes.
Thank you, Dave.
Thank
I
you
hope
very
it
much.
helped you, too.
Oh, sure. Very good. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you so
for
much.
coming.
Thank you.
Thanks.
See you.
And with that, I would call for an adjournment.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, and that concludes the business of the License Committee. We'll have a meeting at the next appropriate time. Thank you.
I'd like to call Public Works to order at 7:03. I only have one item this evening from the docket of October 18th, 2022. Entertain a motion to authorize Park and Forestry Department to pay fiscal year 2022 invoices to Amazon Business in the amounts of $29.56, $30.97, and $174.98.
Second.
Thank you. We're going to be transferring this from 2607, so we don't need to allocate any money. Does anybody have any questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. And that concludes the business. I'd like to call for an adjournment at 7:04.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We are adjourned at 7:04. Thank you.
I'd like to call the Finance Committee to order at 7:04. Sitting on this committee are Councilor Cobus and Councilor Reynolds. There are several measures, and we need to have a couple of discussions this evening. From the docket of October 18, 2022, I entertain a motion to transfer $5,000 from account 1124100-578300, Citywide Reserve Fund for transfer to account 1510100571010 Health in State Travel to reimburse city employees.
Second.
This is contractual and legal. When city employees use their cars, they have to pay them IRS rates, it's 56.5 cents a mile. So, is there any other discussion? Seeing none, call for a vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. From the docket of October 18, 2022, I entertain a motion to transfer $136.43 from account 1510100-550030 health vaccinations to account 1510100-578020 health bill previous year to pay an invoice from fiscal year 22.
Second.
This is a predominant measure during this time of the year. And I would recommend its passage. Is there any other discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Motion passes unanimously. From the docket of October 18, 2022, I entertain a motion to rescind the intergovernment state and county assessment org 1980100 in the amount of $6,389,250 within council vote number 12 of June 21st, 2022, and replace it with state and county assessment org 1980100 in the amount of $6,437,916. The programs are the same programs as before: county assessment, mosquito control, air pollution district RMV non-renewal surcharge, regional transit, special education, school choice sending tuition, and charter schools sending tuition. The accounts are the same as the last vote. The state budget is the same, but the final figures have changed. And the only final figures that changed was the bottom line. So I just read the amounts of the bottom line. The difference between what we voted on June 21st, 2022 and today is $48,666. And additionally, I'd entertain a motion to appropriate $27,185 to account A 4220070-551070, school buildings maintenance, building supplies.
Second.
Thank you, Councilor Cobus. So I hope you follow this, that we have the final budget, just like our budget. We do a budget, we approve a budget, and then we have a supplemental budget, and the supplemental budget is the real budget. That's exactly what's going on here, is that the state and county assessments have been finalized, and so the budget's been finalized, and we're winding up with more money than we thought, which is a good thing. The difference of the $48,666, of that, there was a net of $75,851, and if you subtract $48,666, you wind up with $27,185 left over. So that's where we're getting the $27,185 to the school building supply. Let me repeat that, because you're looking like you're questioning. The fiscal 2023 budget were revised up by a net of $75,851. So if you take the two numbers I told you in the beginning of the motion, the $6,389,250 that we voted on June 21st, subtract that from the new amount, $6,437,916, you're going to come up with $75,851. The difference in the school choice sending tuition and charter school sending amounted to a difference of $48,666. From the $75,851 results in a net money of $27,185, which we're transferring to the school building supplies. Everybody got it? Good. Any questions or discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Now, from the docket of October 18th, 2022, I entertain a motion to appropriate the following. To schools building maintenance account A4299070-530-500, $210,542.36. To citywide reserve fund for transfer account number 241-000-578300 in the amount of $132,632.64, and to the DPW paving, account number 14201-000-589-006, $200,000 for a total of $543,175.
Second.
Thank you, Councilor Copus. So, what's going on here?
It's 066, you said 006.
Oh, I'm
Just a
sorry, I'm
friendly-
sorry. Yep. That last account number was, at the end of it was 589066, not 006. So thank you for tracking that. Sure. So we're appropriating this money to accommodate the district improvement financing, which is the area in the train area for the Transportation District Improvement, TDI complex. Their taxes and their real estate go into a special fund, which is being gathered, hopefully to become millions and millions of dollars for someday to build a parking garage. The district improving financing is a special program where the people that are in a particular zone pay a little bit extra in their real estate. It's a minimum amount that goes into a special fund. Those dollars have to come out of the growth dollars that the assessor is using. That is the difference between the levy last year and the levy this year because of new construction. The growth figure was estimated, and the assessing department changed vendors this year for their camera system, and the newly appointed vendor has discovered more growth than we had typically seen in the past, or the market was stronger than it was in the past. Either way, the assessor wanted with much more growth than she had forecasted. $500,000 more. That's a significant amount. So in the $678,175 of growth more that she wound up with than she thought she was going to have, $110,000 has to be pulled out to go into the district improvement financing, leaving the $543,175 in the motion to be distributed to those four accounts. Does that make it clear? Mm-hmm. Does anyone have any questions? Yes.
Just to clarify, the 543,175 is what was left over, and the 110 comes off of that? Or is that 543 number what's left after the 110?
543 is what's left over.
After, okay.
Yep. Yep.
Beautiful, thank you.
Yes, Councilor DeSanto.
Thank you, Chair Conti. Just a couple of, one question and one statement. The statement first, I'm happy to see the $200,000 going into the paving. That's awesome. And number two, there's been two additions to school building maintenance. Do we know why those are, did the administration explain why they're putting that there? I'm just curious.
I suspect that it's much in the line of the capital improvement needs.
Okay.
That the school building maintenance has been underfunded.
Okay.
And this is a catch-up measure.
All right, thank you.
Some problems come to light when there's an unexpected arrival of fresh money. Problems that you never even heard of suddenly pop up and are being fixed.
Okay.
And that's exactly what's going on here.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions? Seeing none, I'll call for, yep.
And the thing that jumps out at me is this district improvement financing amount, the $110,000. Correct me if I'm wrong, my understanding of this is that that's going to citywide reserve for transfer. Well, so first of all, that money needs to be spent in the district area, like the diff region. But we're not seeing that now because we need to set the actual tax rate first and eventually pull that out. So that's why it's included in the citywide reserve for transfer.
There's two things going on here.
Correct.
You're correct. That we need to set the tax rate. It has to be approved by Massachusetts Department of Revenue before the number gets finalized. The second thing is that the $110,000 that we're realizing this year is just the beginning. It's like a little seed that as that transit development improvement district develops, for example, One Wall Street is now in that district, and it's now fully built, and it will be taxed at its full rate. Next year, it'll be contributing more to the district improvement financing. So the number won't be 110,000, it'll be a bigger number. All of these funds, the 110,000 and all of the funds from future years go into a special account that is earmarked just for district improvement financing, capital improvements. So the garage is one of several different capital improvement projects in that area. There's talk of new streetways, there's new parkways, park benches and streetlights. It never ends. So the future councils are going to be dealing with that because it's going to be a long, long time before the district improvement financing gets to the area of actually spending any of this money. It's just accumulating.
But, so my question was more, is the reason we're not seeing this go into the diff fund because we need to set the tax rate
Yes,
first?
have to set the
And that's
tax rate
why-
first, yes.
And that's why we're seeing it go to reserve for transfer, essentially, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Any other comments, questions? Like everything else, it's complicated. Motion's in order. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion passed unanimously. Now, I believe, and my memory might not serve me right, that we requested a public hearing for the tax classification last meeting. Right, so we don't need to do that again. And we had the treasurer, the auditor, and director down, so we don't need to do that in. So I am having a discussion with the health department next week about the vehicle issue that was in the mayor's communication. I have a lot of questions, and I want to know everything before I bring it before you. So we'll deal with that in 2 weeks, if that's okay with you, and it's okay with her. And that concludes the business that I have to bring before you this evening. If you have any other items that you want to discuss, seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second?
Thank you. Motion's in order. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I declare the Finance Committee adjourned at 7:17. Thank you.
I call Transportation and Traffic Committee to order at 7:17. Present with me tonight are Councilors Dolan and Councilor DeSimone. A couple of matters for discussion. We have a number of items that are pending public hearings, so we're obviously not going to address those this evening, but there's a couple of things that I'd like to give some updates on, just because I have gotten some questions over the last few weeks, mostly from residents who are wondering. So with regard to the Pine Street and Carpenter Street motion, as well as the Greenwich Street and Holly Street, these are for stop signs and multi-way stop. These are currently with traffic study, awaiting recommendations. So I'm anticipating getting recommendations back from them, hopefully this month, later this month, to be able to address those. With regard to Rathbone Willard Drive, did get some more information from the police chief and wanted to float the idea of setting up a site visit. If the councilors had questions about it and maybe wanted to arrange for us to have a site visit, Chief Hegney said he'd be interested in walking us through the proposed areas where the no parking ban would be and his safety concerns that he was considering. So maybe it might help to have some eyes on. So if that is something the council wants to do, I'm happy to set that up and open it up to everyone. Yes, Councilor DeSimone.
Yes, thanks, Chair Bennett. I appreciate the offer. I called the chief after the last meeting because I realized that I didn't fully understand what was happening. And after talking to the chief, getting his explanation, and driving by the site, I spoke too quickly. I think I appreciate what he's trying to do over there and the traffic concerns that as he expressed them to me, I have a better understanding. So I am good to go and support this were we to vote it out tonight. So I'm okay with no site visit, but I do appreciate the effort, and I'll participate if there is one. But I have a better understanding now, and I will fully support this request.
Absolutely. Any other comments? Yes, Councilor Dolan.
Ditto. Because I don't have any children down that way anymore, so I never go down that street, but I did go by, and I think I had a better understanding as well. So obviously, you as the chair, I'd be happy to participate as well if you want to do a site visit. Otherwise, if you support this and if Councilor DeSimone supports it, and you want to move it out of committee, I'm happy to do that as well.
Okay, yeah, I have spoken with Chief Hegney and did get some communications as well from Chief LaChance regarding the fire concerns, especially toward the end where Brennan is, where the new high school is, and how narrow that is for the fire trucks to be able to get through there. So, I mean, I'm comfortable with the proposals as they were brought out, but I certainly wanted to invite the rest of the council, and if you had any remaining concerns that you feel needed to be addressed or wanted to set up a site visit, I wanted to keep that open before bringing this out. Does anybody have any questions, concerns, or any interest in setting up a site visit? Yes.
It's more of a comment. Council Bennett, I just wanted to recognize the work you've put in on this. Being involved in several of the communications with the chiefs, with Mike Tyler, with yourself, I think the back and forth was helpful. I think it helped both chiefs understand where the council was coming from. I appreciate all three of the department heads listening to what the concerns were and coming up to something that makes sense. I think site visits are always good. Throughout the years, Council Conti and I have been on many site visits. But I think that the explanations and people seeing it, I mean, I'm down there constantly with my son and cross country, and it's tough. It's tough down there. But I just wanted to recognize the work you put in on this.
Thank you. I do think that getting the information about the available parking spaces that we currently have, the current parking inventory between Brennan, Studley, and the high school, predominantly the high school being a concern, and what will be added shortly as they continue the project and continue to build out those parking spaces, I think alleviates a lot of the shortage concerns that we were originally thinking. Those lots did not exist before. And so as they're finishing the project, as they're moving forward, I think we're going to see a lot of these concerns quickly get alleviated. And to Chief Hegney's point, compromising safety because we're short a few parking spaces right now, maybe that's not the way to go on this. Any other questions or concerns? No? Well, in that case, I'm happy to move it forward tonight and bring this out so the full council can have an opportunity to vote on it on Tuesday. I entertain a motion to approve the following ordinance change in section 10-5 parking, 10-5.2A, prohibited on certain streets as it pertains to the reopening of Rathbone-Willard Drive from Thatcher Street to Rome Boulevard, to delete Rathbone-Willard Drive easterly and westerly from 570 feet northerly of Thatcher Street to 720 feet northerly of Thatcher Street, and insert Rathbone-Willard Drive entire easterly side northerly from Thatcher Street to Rome Boulevard, Rathbone-Willard Drive westerly side from Thatcher Street 430 feet northerly and westerly side 1,400 feet northerly of Thatcher Street to Rome Boulevard.
Second.
Thank you. Motion is in order. Any other comments or discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. To address the next motion from the docket of February 15th, 2022, this regards proposed parking changes to Angeline Street. I have been collecting a lot of historic information to share with the committee and with the full council on this, digging back to 2017 when these changes were first made. What I'm trying to do is gather not only those historic concerns for everyone to sort of refresh on. I know the council has changed composition, but what I'm finding is that the concerns that were raised then and the concerns that are raised now are not necessarily different. And so I understand that there's a lot of history here, and just an update that I'm continuing to gather some of that information for everyone to consider. I want to make sure that we have all of that historic document and a summary that everyone can read through and understand what the issues were, particularly for the newer members of the council, like myself, who were not here for that first round of votes in 2017. And to make sure that if there are any new concerns or considerations, that those get properly weighed as well. So just an update and more to come on that one. And just one last motion. I entertain a motion to strike the following from the docket of December 3rd, 2019. A communication from the Traffic Study Commission recommending delay in opening of Rathbone-Willard Drive through traffic until a traffic light is installed at Thatcher and Rathbone-Willard.
Second.
Thank you. So this one has been mooted by wonderful progress. We've seen the road opened now for a few months, and the light is fully operational. So I'd like to clear this one off the docket. Any other questions or concerns from the council or the committee? All those in favor? Aye. Aye. Motion passes. That concludes the business for this evening for the Traffic and Transportation Committee. I move to adjourn at 7:26.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We are adjourned.
The IT and Infrastructure Committee is canceled for tonight.
The Zoning and Land Use Committee is canceled tonight.
I'd like to call the City Property and Claims Committee to order at 7:25. And I have 5 items on the docket this evening. From the docket of October 18th, 2022, I entertain a motion to accept the $10,000 TDI cohort project grant through Mass Development from the Attleboro Art Museum to the city for downtown revitalization.
Second.
Thank you. I think if you went through your information, this is a really nice thing that's happening, and I kudos to everybody that helped it occur. So it'll be nice to see the artwork finally come to fruition over there. Any other questions or concerns? All those in-
It's great.
Yeah, I agree. Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That motion passes. From the docket of October 18th, 2022, I entertain a motion to transfer $800 from account 1610100-524-240 Library Maintenance of Equipment to account 1610100-578020 Library Bill Previous Year to pay a previous year's invoice to SS Service Corp.
Second.
Thank you. I think it's pretty self-explanatory. Any questions or concerns?
No.
Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, that motion passes. From the docket of October 18th, 2022, I entertain a motion to declare the following chair from the Economic Development Office as surplus and available for disposition. It is one black fabric office chair, and it is in poor condition.
Second.
Thank you. Any other, I think it's pretty self-explanatory, but any questions or concerns? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, that motion passes. And then, from the docket of October 18th, 2022, I entertain a motion to approve the transfer of $92,000 from 1124100-578380 Citywide Reserve for Capital to account 1510100-587065 Health-Purchase Vehicle for the purpose of 2 vehicles, tentatively Ford Explorers for the Health Department, consistent with the city's green communities policy.
Second.
Thank you. Again, I think it's something that's needed, and I don't see any concerns with it, but any other questions or concerns?
No.
Is that the one Rick was just talking
Yeah.
about? It somehow ended up in mine too? It's not me. So I was gonna say, is it twice or is it 2 things? Did you recognize it? Rick?
It's good that we straightened that out, because I was just gonna hold you up with a whole bunch of questions.
No, so I saw it and I was gonna, and I'm like, is it the same one?
Yep.
So, okay, good. When I was reading it, I was thinking the same thing, but, so we have some concerns and we are gonna hold that. Okay, and Rick, it'll be back in your committee under finance. So, from the docket of October 4th, 2022, I entertain a motion to hold a public hearing on November 1st, 2022, in accordance with Section 2-11.2 of the city ordinances, to declare that the Finberg School property consisting of 1125 South Main Street and 129 Avenue be available for disposition. This request is part of a stated plan to use monies from the sale of city school buildings to reduce the amount of borrowing for the high school project.
Second.
Thank you. Any questions or concerns? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, that motion passes. And that is all the business City Property and Claims has this evening. I would like to call for an adjournment.
Second.
Thank you. And we will, hearing no questions or concerns, I'd like to adjourn at 7:29. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. We are adjourned at 7:29.
I call Personnel, Veterans, and Human Services Committee to order at 7:30. Members are present are myself and Councilor Waterman. All right. From the docket of October, I have one item. From the docket of October 18, 2022, I obtained a motion to accept a generous donation of a 3x5 Prisoner of War MIA flag by the Rolling Thunder, Massachusetts Chapter 2, to the city of Attleboro.
Second.
Motion's in order. These guys this is a great group. They were at the POW MIA. They've done a lot for the city, for the prisoner of war and the MIAs in the city. And I'd just like to thank that group. They're just a wonderful group. Great people. Any questions?
I believe did they have that flag at the 9/11 ceremony?
I am pretty sure they did.
That's where I recall seeing it, yes.
Yep.
It's a great gift.
Absolutely. All right, seeing no more questions, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, motion passes. That is all the business for Personnel, Veterans, Human Services Committee. A call for adjournment at 7:31.
Well, second.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. We are adjourned at 7:31.
All right, I'd like to call the Ordinances Committee to order at 7:31. With me this evening is Councilor Bennett. Thank you, Councilor Bennett. Three things I'd like to discuss and hopefully vote two of them out. Just proceeding down the docket before I make the motion in regard to the pet store issue. I think it's pretty straightforward. I hope everybody supports it. But just by way of information, if anybody needs any, Attleboro, as you may know, has two pet stores at the moment, Petco and Rumford Pet Center. Petco does not sell cats, dogs, or rabbits. Rumford Pet Center sells no live pets. So in terms of this ordinance, proposed ordinance change and how it applies to them, it would apply to Petco, and the only way it would impact them is if we pass it as written, would be in the sale of guinea pigs. But it would deter other potential pet businesses from coming in and selling these animals. I did provide for some of you, so full disclosure, I own guinea pigs. I can personally attest to the guinea pig issue. Ours are from rescues. But for those of you who may be interested, I gave you some headlines from the recent past about the guinea pig population explosion. They're being abandoned and turned over. So there's certainly plenty of them that can be adopted from shelters and don't need to be sold any longer from pet stores. I've also provided on that same document, for those of you who may be interested, there are bills pending at the state. Some of these bills have been proposed years ago, but I don't see those in any way as inhibiting us from taking this action, which I think would be good for the animals and ultimately good for the city. I think we saw that it was pretty well supported. So those are my comments. I support it. I'm ready to move it forward this evening, but I'm open to discussion. Councilor Bennett?
I just wanted to say thank you for having the guests last week. Unfortunately, I wasn't here, but I did have an opportunity to watch the meeting, and I very much appreciated the insights they brought. So thank you for that.
Anybody else want to comment? Councilor Dolan?
I agree with this completely and will fully support it, although I wish it went further. I wish it was all live animals. I wish it was the birds, the reptiles, the ferrets. I don't think any pet store should be selling any live animals because I think it would deter backyard breeders or breeders in general of filling orders. And, you put and I know some people may think it's silly, it's just a guinea pig, but it's a live animal. And, when people get reptiles that they can't take care of, they set them free. And they die a horrible death. They freeze to death. And I know it might just be a gecko or a lizard to some people, but it's a living animal. So as far as I'm concerned, I don't think they should be selling any live animals, any birds, reptiles, ferrets, any of it.
Yeah. Thank you, Councilor Dolan. I support that. If there's if this council has an inclination to go do that, I would support it, but I don't want to jeopardize what is before us.
Right. I would amend it to all animals, but if it's going to jeopardize what we have in front of us, then I'm not interested. I want it to pass regardless.
Councilor Angelo?
Thank you, Councilor DeSimone. I completely agree with both of your assessments. 100% will support this. And and if we did anything further, I would be there to support that as well, too.
Oh, I'm sorry, Jay, sorry.
Thanks. No,
President
to
Dorsey.
counsel, to both your points, and I think this is the first time we've used this phrase that Mark Cooper was so fond of. They're called the revised ordinances for a reason. It's a living, breathing document. So once we get this piece into it, if the appetite's there from the public, from the council, we can always introduce an amendment to what Councilor Dolan's recommending. I think this is a good first step to get the discussion started. Appreciate you bringing it out of committee.
Oh, thank you, I agree. I think it's prudent to take it as it is, and then we'll see how it goes, and I would certainly be open to those amendments. I would like to make one amendment to this, just for the sake of consistency and clarity with both the ordinance itself and the Mass General Law, is to change the section title to Humane Pet Shop, because that term is what's used in the language, that term is what's used in the Mass General Law. So it's a small thing, but for the sake of consistency, may I make a friendly amendment to that effect? So I would like to propose that we change the title of the proposed new section from Section 9-48 Humane Pet Store to Humane Pet Shop.
Second.
Thank you, Councilor Bennett. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Any further discussion on the merits of the proposed ordinance itself? No? Good. All right. Then let me get my act together. I would, one second, okay. I entertain a motion to approve the amendments to Section 9 of the revised ordinances by adding the following section, Section 9-48 Humane Pet Shop.
Second.
President Delicio, can I waive the reading, or you want me to read it? Do you have any-
Everyone, as long as everyone has a copy per Solicitor Amaru's opinion earlier in this term, I think that's
Okay.
fine.
Would anybody like me to read it in full? You're all comfortable with the language before you, the only change being store to shop. Everybody good?
The only question I would have is perhaps the public wants to hear some of it.
Okay.
And
I will do
that's
it.
up to you, but that's a thought.
I'm more than happy to do a speed reading. You ready? Okay. Okay. Section 9-48 Humane Pet Shop. 9-48.1 definitions, the following words shall, unless the context clearly requires otherwise, have the following meanings. A, pet shop means a retail establishment where animals are sold or offered for sale as pets, which is required to be licensed pursuant to MGL Chapter 129, Section 39A, and 330 CMR 12. A person who only sells or otherwise transfers the offspring of animals the person has bred on their residential premises shall not be considered a pet shop for purposes of this section. B, sell means to exchange for consideration, adopt out, barter, auction, trade, lease, or otherwise transfer for consideration. C, offer for sale means to advertise or otherwise proffer an animal for acceptance by another person or entity. D, public animal control agency or shelter means a facility operated by a governmental entity for the purpose of impounding seized, stray, homeless, abandoned, unwanted, or surrendered animals, or a facility operated for same purposes under a written contract with a government entity. E, animal rescue organization means a not-for-profit organization that is registered with the Massachusetts Department of Agricultural Resources if required, and whose mission and practice is, in whole or in significant part, the rescue and placement of dogs, cats, guinea pigs, or rabbits into permanent homes. The term animal rescue organization does not include any person or entity that breeds animals or obtains animals in exchange for payment or compensation from a person that breeds or brokers animals. 9-48.2, sale of dogs, cats, guinea pigs, or rabbits by pet shops prohibited. A, it shall be unlawful for a pet shop to sell or offer for sale a dog, cat, guinea pig, or rabbit. B, a pet shop may provide space for the display of dogs, cats, guinea pigs, or rabbits available for adoption by a public animal control agency or shelter or an animal rescue organization, so long as the pet shop receives no part of any fees associated with this display or adoption of the animals and has no ownership interest in any of the animals displayed or made available for adoption. 9-48.3 enforcement and severability. A, any pet shop that makes a sale or offers for sale of a dog, cat, guinea pig, or rabbit in violation of Section 9-48.2 shall be fined in an amount not to exceed $300 pursuant to General Law, Chapter 40, Section 21D, and Section 9-42 of the revised ordinances of the City of Attleboro. Each unlawful sale or offer for sale shall constitute a separate violation. B, in addition to any other remedy provided by law, this section may be enforced through any other means available in law or equity. Nothing in this section may be construed to alter or amend any other legal obligations applicable to pet shops or any other entities under state law or regulation. C, the invalidity of any section or provision of this section shall not invalidate any other section or provision thereof. Questions, comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. All right, Council Bennett, moving right along. I'm going to page 25 from the docket of September 6th. We had a public hearing, although the minutes state that the public hearing is on the 18th. We actually had it on September 20th. From the docket of September 6, 2022, I entertain a motion to amend Section 2-19 Economic Development Board by changing Chairman of the Municipal Council's Committee on Capital Improvements and City Development to Chair of Finance Committee.
Second.
Second, and the reason I read it as chair is because I believe we did in fact amend it at a prior time, perhaps when it was introduced. I can't recall, but it's been amended. Comments, questions, concerns?
None.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. And lastly, I don't want to, I'm open to discussing the proposed amendments to chapter zoning in regard to marijuana sales, recreational marijuana retail sales, but I want to hold a vote until we hear back from the planning board and gets its certificate of vote and any concerns it may have. But 2 weeks ago, I gave you all my initial thoughts on the matter, and I guess I'm wondering from you, Councilor Bennett, and then everybody else, if you have questions you would like me to get answers to or information you need to further deliberate this question, I can endeavor to do that before we get to the point of a vote. But like I said, I'm okay with discussing it, but I wanted to wait on voting on it until we hear back from the planning board and see where they are.
Well, I'll defer to the other council members if they have questions, since I am abstaining from.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry, Councilor Bennett. So folks, you heard what I just said. I think you all have copies of my initial thoughts on it. And I have several. I don't know if anybody else. Yes.
We're going to discuss, we need to wait until Councilor Bennett.
Sorry, Councilor Bennett.
Sorry.
Sorry.
Bring my stuff.
You can act as a committee member if you need me to.
Sure, be happy to have you. I have a few extra copies of those thoughts, and again, this is just where I am now. I reserve the right, as always, to change my mind with additional information. But this is where I'm at. And I didn't know if anybody wanted to talk about some of the things I've suggested or had your own suggestions that we can put on the table or that may need further research.
Do you have a copy with you that I can look at? Oh, well,
Anybody else need a copy?
yeah, I don't know. Thank you.
Last time, here you go.
I had to, wait, I don't need it. I just found out.
Are you taking questions at this point?
Yeah, let's start the conversation. As I said, there's a lot to talk about, so I figured we could start it. And my thinking is if there's anything information I can get and report back to you based on your questions and concerns.
Well, I agree in the concept of buffer zones. How did you come up with,
500.
yeah,
That's just a starting point. Thank you for that question, Council Waterman. So one of the issues we heard presented by the resident and Nova was this idea of buffer zones, not only between the businesses, but between the businesses and particularly residential uses and residential property. It's 100 feet now. I threw out 500 purely as a discussion starter. I am not married to it. However, I am open to more than 100. I'm probably thinking 5 is a bit much, but it's just a discussion starter. Council Reynolds.
So I can tell you 500 is a bit much because there'd be no place to put them, especially, anywhere. It'd just be, that's why they'd be back in industrial zones. The second thing is that liquor stores and many other areas, liquor stores here in Attleboro don't have any buffer zone.
Right.
And all over in many other cities and towns across Massachusetts, there's no. North Attleboro itself has no buffer.
Fair.
So 100 to me is like saying, because you were letting people know, okay, this is new, some people are opposed to it, so the 100-foot, and I had this conversation with our planner, Gary Arazian, as well, and he said, he felt 100 was fine. and to wait, because as I see it, we had one person come and complain, one resident. That was it, just one resident, and I don't think we need to change what has been working. We see it has been working for one resident in a city of 40, close to 40,000. That's my comments.
Councilor Renzo, if I may respond, so you're right. However, if this passes in the zones proposed, we're gonna have more residents impacted, right? Because they're gonna be residences who are close to the new zones. So it may be more of an issue after this change, so it's food for thought.
I will clearly tell you, even if it were to be switched, I think our reasoning for 100 was to see how the businesses worked out, and we haven't had any issues. There have been no issues. Now, granted, I mean, hey, be my guest, because there'll be no place to put them. You go right ahead, do whatever you want, but there'll be no place to put them. I mean, even at possibly 250 feet limits you to an extraordinary small amount of places, even in South Attleboro. So I think, and I agree with our planner, is that 100 feet is more than enough. And actually, we don't even need it because many cities and towns don't do it. And those are my comments.
Thank you. It's a fair point. Councilor Copus?
Or I think,
Oh, I'm sorry, Councilor Dillon.
Thank you. Can you clarify the 100 feet on everything, or are we talking between
I'm
marijuana
talking the 100
businesses?
feet between residential and all of that. I don't think it needs to be larger.
So the five,
That we're
because
tackling
we have
it.
500 feet resident, 500 feet public or private school, 500 feet daycare,
This
family.
was Kathleen.
Yeah, so
This is
I didn't know
not what
which
it
one you were
is.
referring to, that's what I was just asking.
Yes, I was referring,
Yes.
now we're at 100 feet and it's been working.
Right.
That's what
For
we
all of
have.
these?
For all of them.
Oh,
No.
No, no, I'm sorry, Councilor Reynolds, if I may. So I have the current language, and so currently, it's 100 feet from a principal residential use, but it is currently 500 from a school, 500 from a daycare, family center, 500 from a ballpark, public playground, et cetera, et cetera.
I was talking residential.
You were talking about the residential.
all right, so increased setbacks, buffer zones from residents, et cetera, and so this.
So
on
the
front
change would be 1, Laura.
To 100 feet.
It is 100.
It is
now.
100. The question is, do we want to increase it from 100 feet?
Because the front says 100, the back says 500, so I'm just trying to figure out.
It says currently 100. That's what it is. 100 from residential, principal residential use. It's currently 100.
Right, on the front it says that.
Yeah, that's what it is currently. And then I threw out 500 just as a discussion started. Do we want to
Right.
increase that?
Okay.
Based upon certainly the comments of the resident who came, but also,
Understood.
if we put them in the new zones, they're going to be close to too many more residences. But again, I'm open to discussion.
I mean, I think 500 is excessive, and I don't even, to be honest with you, between marijuana businesses, I don't care if there's no buffer, like, this is capitalism, this is what everybody wants, right? This is what, so I think they had proposed 2,500 feet, which was like the next town. And then I'm for expanding the hours as well.
Okay. Yeah.
I think that concludes my comments for now.
Thank you, Councilor Dolan. And the space between the businesses, I put that in there because it was proposed.
Right.
I have no particular position on that either, to be honest with you. Councilor Cobus and then Councilor Reynolds?
thank you. I agree both with Counselor Reynolds and with Counselor Dolan. I don't see a need to change it from the 100 feet that it is now. I think that would exclude us from being able to put this anywhere. And I'm all for capitalism, and I don't see the need to say that you can't put two of these next to each other and have, need to amend it for the 500 feet between two different marijuana retailers. I don't feel strongly about it. It wouldn't, I wouldn't vote against it because that was amended, but I don't see a need for it. As far as my suggestion, as far as changing the hours to 8 a.m. to 11, or optionally to 11 p.m., I'm supportive of that, but I suggest we include that as separate business. Including things that would change where people could put these, I think we should address that now as part of expanding to general business, but I would separate out the changes to the hours of operation. I think that's a separate issue. And then the only other thing that I'd like to mention is the language that's in there about if somebody wants to transfer a license, and that we would allow them to transfer from the industrial zone to general business, but they would have to simultaneously close the old one and open the new one.
Right.
I think there would be value if we added a 1 month or 2 month buffer to transition, just for the businesses, but I can email a proposal for what that language might look like,
Yeah.
but I'd like to suggest that one change.
Yeah, I just had that discussion. Mr. D'Agostino called me today, and he had a similar thinking about a transition period. My only concern would be, is that in any way increasing the number of permits? Because they would theoretically have 2, right? I mean, you have 1, but for 2 places. I just we'd have to be careful, I think, around that transition
100%,
period.
yep.
Yeah.
And so I don't know how we would facilitate that, but I do think there would be value in having a small overlap.
I'm open to that.
Up to a max of 2 months.
I'm open to that. I just think we got to be careful so we're not increasing the number of permits. But I certainly understand that situation, because otherwise they'd have to turn on a dime.
Well, the language is written such that we will not grant further special permits once we're at 5. So it's not saying that we'll limit it to 5 total, it's just that we won't grant new ones once 5 are operational.
Well, and that language has been,
Yeah, so
Councilor Reynolds.
that language has to be changed, so that the resulting language would then read, the special permit granting authority shall, so may goes out, not grant a special permit for a marijuana retailer when, remove if, 5 or more are actively being operated. That has to change. And then I think we were talking about space. Laura, you were talking about the space in between. So let me just kind of visualize that between where Attleboro begins on Route 1 to Pawtucket is less than 4.5 miles. Which, if you don't put some kind of distance type of thing between, you could have all 10 retailers right in that one little spot. So, I mean, we don't need this type of a retailer, or any type of a retailer. Even in South Attleboro, you have Walgreens on the line, or, yeah, I think it's Walgreens now, or it might be Price Right. It's changed so many times right there on the section. Then you have CVS, and then you go to Target. 3, like Walmart, you even have Walmart, where there's like a pharmacy of some nature. You don't need them. I mean, even the Dunkin' Donuts, you've got a Dunkin' Donut down near the Pawtucket line, and then you have a Dunkin' Donut at the intersection of 123 and Washington, and then you still, in between both of those, you have a Honeydew. So you have space between them. They are not right next to one another. And if you put 2 retail like this next to one another, I mean, if you want to hear we hear the traffic constantly now. If you think for 1 minute there won't be a hullabaloo like there is off of County Street in the industrial, what's going on in the industrial park, it just can't be. There has to be some kind of a reasonable, and that might even be taken care of, hopefully, if it went to the planning board. When people pick out a site, no, this isn't good enough, or this is that, or that is it. But, I mean, I think there should be some reasonable distance so that you have the one that's a native sun that's open up. And then, so that's right practically on the line. You really should only have 2 more, 3 at the very most between there in that, what is really almost a 4-mile radius, 4-mile strip. That's my own feeling, and again, I had this conversation with the city planner. He said he agreed it's like almost ridiculous, but we also talked about the time in between, letting people have an opportunity to move from one place to the other, and I like the idea of not letting it overlap. They shouldn't have to close until they're ready to open up. There should be some kind of, I think it should be like almost 6 months head start to get it moved, because it's not something that happens overnight. You're talking about getting the site itself prepared to make the move, and they should have some kind of advantage there. So that, again, those are the things that I'm concerned about, because obviously most of the places that they can move are Pleasant Street. People, if you're going to do it evenly, they should be on every north, south, east, and west. They shouldn't all be in the southern part of Attleboro with whatever is left open and available to be opened up on a plot of land that's only 4 miles long. So, you're talking about now putting them on Pleasant Street and possibly on Route 152 in certain areas. I think there's a lot to consider to say that they can be really close to one another. I'm highly opposed to that.
Thank you, Councilman. I'm ambivalent. I do agree, and I had this discussion. I met with Blair, as I think several of you did. This is capitalism, baby. I mean, we don't stop Dunkin' Donuts from opening up next to Honeydew. We're not involved in that. That's a business choice. These are grown-up adults. They're making a lot of money.
But they're not right on top of one another.
That's
None of
not
them
our
are.
call, sir.
Point one out.
That's a
Point one
business
out.
decision,
County Square,
not a council
County
decision.
Square has them right next to one another?
Pleasant Street.
Honeydew Dunkin' Donuts,
Across the street.
Oh, they are, yeah, across the street, yeah.
in liquor stores.
It's a fair point.
Fair point. It's a bigger operation. I don't know, I just think a lot of traffic, not that there's not a lot of traffic, that Dunkin' Donut one near the school is just absolutely ridiculous where the traffic is on 123.
Traffic's a concern. I totally agree with you, and I'm hoping that the planning board,
That there.
now that what we've learned based on Frank Mosberg,
Oh, yeah.
that these issues are addressed a little bit better. I'm sorry, President Delicio.
No worries, thanks, I appreciate the discussion. So, I'm kind of with you, like, right now, a little ambivalent, I'm curious to see what comes back from the planning.
Yeah. Yep.
Some of my thoughts, I think the transition from industrial to general business, I mean, they'll be working on their space,
Yeah.
but they'll still be operating. So if Nova moves from, Frank Mossberg to Route 1, they're not gonna be selling out of both places. I think that's what we need to be cognizant of.
Right.
For my full-time job, I've closed down service centers while opening up new ones. So, we shut them down on a Friday night, we're open, ready to go on Monday. I think that is what I'd have an appetite for. And if you decide that the business wants to move,
Yeah.
that's a cost of doing business that you might have to lose a day or two. Not that, but it's true. We talk about capitalism, we talked about Native Son, we have places in Plainville. Remember, Rhode Island's gonna be starting
Yeah,
to sell
yeah.
marijuana, I
Yep.
think, within the next several weeks.
That's correct.
And, Route 1 is going to be really close to Pawtucket. I bring that up because that's going to take away some of the business and some of the traffic concerns, potentially. We don't know. I do appreciate Mr. Drazik's point of view, and I certainly understand, and I understand he was only one person, but, he lives there. I think there's some merit to listening. I think 500, to Councilor Reynolds' point, we're going to shoot. And if that's what we decide, is to essentially ban without banning, that's what we do, right?
Yeah.
Let's see, I think there's a way to split the difference somehow,
I
some
agree.
way.
I agree.
And then, like I said, I think we wait for the planning board to see what makes sense and see where they're at. And the last question is, have you spoken with the chief about it? What's his, Chief Hegney, what's his view? And,
Well, the chief didn't come to the public hearing.
yep. I don't,
I have spoken to the chief privately, but I would just note for the record that the chief didn't come to the public hearing, so
yeah.
I don't know if he has a strong feeling about it at this point. I
But
mean,
my question wasn't, was the chief present at the public hearing? It was, have you spoken to the chief?
I have spoken with him privately, but I'm not going to speak for him.
Okay.
So you could certainly all contact him. My experience with Chief Hegney and Frank Mossberg is that the traffic has proven to be a much bigger issue than anybody anticipated. But I'm not going to speak in terms of his feelings about this change, I would.
No, it's not what it's
Okay,
asking. It's
okay.
asking, because usually we'll speak with the department
Yeah.
head, they'll give us their opinion, they'll
Yep.
give us thoughts, we'll bring them in, present them in front of the council. As far as the chief not coming to the public hearing, I mean,
Yeah.
if he had to come to every single public hearing, if
No, fair enough.
every single department head had to come.
And I
so-
say that respectfully, only that opportunity, but I can certainly reach out to him. I guess when we get a little bit further along and these potential changes a little better formed,
Yep,
I can run him by him, but, the resident thing, Councilor Disley, I just think about, would I want to live there? Do I want one opening? I don't know if I want any business opening within 100 foot of my house.
sure.
I have tons of them.
So I'm not, the 500, like I said, was a discussion point. It's not going to be 500, but,
And then my last, if I
Yeah.
could, I don't know that when we're talking about Dunkin' Donuts and Honeydew and weed and marijuana, I don't know, it's exactly apples to apples. I think the concept is there, competition, and the success of these businesses is gonna be predicated on the demand and what the demand is. And I think as more shops open up around Attleboro, we're probably gonna see that demand decrease from where it's been.
agreed. I would just say, I don't know that's our job to protect them per se. We're certainly not here to get in the way. I don't think government should get in the way of business. I don't know how far it's going to
100% not what I was
protect.
saying.
Okay.
It's
I
not
was
what
gonna say-
we're, what I was saying is just, I don't think Dunks and Nova are the same business model. I think that, and believe me, I'm with you. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm a capitalist by heart. And it makes me proud, but,
Yeah.
we've got to do what's the right thing for Attleboro and not worry about North Attleboro, Plainville, Pawtucket. But what I am saying is that potentially some of these concerns with the traffic might be eased because you're gonna have more competition within the surrounding
Yeah.
areas. And the demand for Attleboro could look really different in 6 months than it has to this date.
Agreed.
Thank you.
Councilor Reynolds?
Yeah, I think there is also, you got to remember, is that they cannot get loans from a bank. This is all privately funded. This is not money that they can just go like other businesses and receive a huge loan to start this kind of a business because it's not federally approved. So if you have to be really well-funded to make this happen, and some of the companies that have come in have struggled because they have to pay for a space ahead of opening the space. And so it's, you're talking a lot of money. And the companies that are on the cusp of trying to survive even have put $3, $4, $5 million into it already.
Yep.
The ones that are being successful, are even more fortunate, but they've continued to put large sums of money into it, private money. It's private money.
No, I agree, and I respect the investment that they've made in Attleboro. They spent a ton of money for their businesses here, and the places, the three that I've been to are...
Great.
They look great. They're fantastic improvements. They're beautiful businesses. I appreciate the investment in the city. Councilor Daniel?
Thank you, Councilor DeSimone. I think everybody's had a lot of great points, and along with President Delicio, had some great points as well too that added to. Obviously we should worry about Attleboro and not surrounding neighborhoods or cities and stuff. To Councilor Reynolds' point is, don't even think we need a buffer, but obviously it's there, and I would be fine with where it's at and not going beyond that. That's where I would stand on all that.
All right, so just to recap, so it sounds like the buffer people are pretty much happy with where it is. I'm still open. I'll be curious to see if the planning board has any changes, although I sense not. We're disinclined in terms of the distance between retailers. We need to think about the transitional period for existing permit holders who are looking to relocate and be very careful about the language around there so they're not operating to at the same time. Councilor Dolan?
We're only allowing for retail, correct?
Yes, this is only retail.
So as far as overlap, so let's just take Nova, for instance. So I went on a tour of Nova, and I assume most of us did. So they have the production, and then they have the storefront. I can't imagine, so hypothetically, if they rent out, I don't know, somewhere in the center of town that they want their new business, it's basically just display. I mean, I can't imagine their transition is going to be
Well, that's the security measures and all the other things they have to do to comport.
Right, so I assume they would just build it out and then bring the product when, like President Delicio said, it's the price of doing business. I mean, if it's a retail space, and I assume a pot shop doesn't need a huge, if they're not doing any manufacturing, so they're gonna build it out, put all the displays, whatever, and then bring the product in one shot, I would assume. So I can't imagine that's gonna be months. And, and I get Council Reynolds, I get what you're saying about the private funds. I mean, they have backers, they have investors, and a lot of, I know they can't go to a bank to get a loan, and they're responsible to these investors for profits,
I get what you're saying, can I just reply
Of
to
course,
that?
yeah.
But I'm wondering when it's considered, do you have two permits?
That's
When
what
the
I'm-
state,
when you're
is it-
selling, that's what I would think.
I don't know.
That's what
I
I'm
don't know
concerned
what
about.
the legality
That's why
of it
this
is.
transitional
It's
period
important, yeah.
needs to be very carefully structured.
Yeah,
Because
I think that's the big issue, and I don't know what it is, like, what do they say? The minute this,
The product is in the building
or
for
the
sale.
town says they've given you the permit, is that when it starts? I don't know.
I'll reach
I
out
don't
to the
know.
city planner, because I certainly appreciate Councilor Cobus's thinking, but I think we just gotta be careful, and if you have language, Councilor Cobus, but I'll talk to the city planner about that as well. I am in favor of extending the hours. I will introduce that as new business, because I would treat them the same as liquor store hours, but I appreciate that it might be a bit much with this bite of the apple, so I can introduce that down the road at some point. And then, I think that's all we had for the moment, right? Does that cover everything pretty much? So just some initial thoughts. But anybody particularly concerned about adding these general business and planned highway? Does anybody want to do one and not the other? Both, everybody seems open to both at the moment? Or reserves the right to speak and further, okay, fine. All right, I just figure now's the time to talk about it, but any concluding thoughts, comments? All right, duly noted. We can continue the conversation and then see what the planning board comes back with, and we'll certainly be doing some work. Oh, and for the record, Council Reynolds, we are not seeking to increase the number of permits at the moment. Although that was in some language that was submitted, Council Cobus made it very clear that that was not intentional. We're at 5. I'm not proposing an increase right now, although the
But
thought
we
crossed my
really
mind.
aren't, let me clarify, after speaking at length with Gary about this, is that anybody that came in,
Yeah.
they're in there. So you could have 10 in between before we change it from, we need to change it from may to shall.
Yes, that part I understand, but
Yeah,
not the
so
limit, not the total.
We're not changing it, but they're still in there, so they'll be waiting in line like for the liquor store,
Yep.
They'll be waiting for a
Okay.
place, they can apply, and when somebody goes out, they're already in there, so.
Yeah.
I think that it's important to change that language. That's the
Agreed.
big-
And I think Gary appreciated that too, so I anticipate that might be a change that the planning
Yeah.
board is working on. But we're not going to 10, as was in some language. Again, the thought crossed my mind, but I'm not gonna float that right now. All right, very good. Any other parting thoughts, comments? Okay, we'll continue the discussion then. I would entertain a motion to adjourn at 8:07.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, President Delicio. We're adjourned at 8:07.
That's just public safety.
Oh, I'm sorry. There is no business, for public safety is canceled this evening. Thank you.
I think that does it. Everyone just remember to get your minutes to Virginia. Have a good night.